to continue to work on the team and figuring out what our targets are for publication, because we have kind of the way that we have our data organized for the collection and the management of the data turns out is a little bit different than the artifacts that people are going to want to publish. So
That's always the
we have lab analysis over here and the raw data is over here, but they want to publish some kind of combined artifact that's going to merge those three things together. And so we're trying to work through those because that's something as a data manager that we can be aware of, but I'm not going to unilaterally do that kind of stuff without heavy involvement from the researchers, which tends to mean that it moves a little bit slowly. So that's really what we have in HydroShare now is samples, I would say. And several of them are private samples. And my hope is that, I don't know, maybe over the summer, we might arrive at a position with some of those where we can actually publish a little bit richer kind of representation of the other data sets. But yeah, for the most part, it seems like it's moving about as well as I would hope for the number of folks that we're organizing. But the immediate next steps for the future are just to try and figure out what our other data publication targets are for HydroShare and figure out what other challenges there are in terms of metadata that we're missing, raw data that hasn't been uploaded, and that kind of thing. So
how many researchers are you wrangling?
What do you think, Luigi? Like maybe we've got 10 or 12 people in our typical meetings, maybe a little bit more.
There's 3 teams, 3 major teams, and each team has, I would say, 3 to 4 main researchers, right, Max?
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
professors, I guess.
In practice, we probably have like 5 individuals that do most of the uploading. So in terms of like data managers who we talk to, there's people who actually work with the data that talk to us about where to put it and how to do it. And then there's the wider team that's just trying to use the data and download the data, and they just want to know where it is, and they will let us know if the system is down or something.
And that's all time series data, you said.
Kind of. Do you have the table? I have the table up if you want me to show it with the ones that you're currently working on. Do you want me to show it?
Yeah, I don't have it up.
Yeah, let me show it. So here is. So some of these say pending, but I think Max, you already have them private.
The top 4 are submitted now.
Okay, so the top 4 are submitted.
Yep.
So to answer your question, Kirsten, so we do have the soil core samples. We have pictures, right? That's what you submitted to HydroShare.
Yep.
We have also some time series or some numbers that they derived from the pictures and some lab analysis.
So were these core samples registered in CISA?
Yeah, they were.
So
they have ISGSN numbers, so they have that. But what we need to learn is how to put the rest of the actual results in Caesar. Right now, we put the images with some of the raw data in HydroShare.
Yeah, which I was going to say, I mean, the pictures should really stay with the samples, but if they are now submitted to HydroShare, then at least the DOIs of those images should be linked up to the samples, and the analytical data go to the EarthChem library. They do not go into CISA. CISA is just a sample catalog.
Oh, okay, got it. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, so EarthChem, yes, that's what I was thinking. So we haven't done that part.
Yep.
So we haven't done that part, and we're still getting the data from that, right? About the lab analysis data from the
and maybe we should talk early on to clarify what the format is, how methods are described and so on, that it, you're not starting to put together files that then need to be modified, that we have templates for these data.
And we showed the templates last year to the researchers.
Oh, you did. Okay, great.
We just showed them though. And so I'm sure that won't help to fill them out. And so we don't know how to do that. So whether we should learn more about the template, because again, Max's and I background is more on the cyber infrastructure side of thing, or so maybe we just need to sit down with them.
I think that would be a good idea. Yes.
Yeah.
And
So-
we're flexible. We can create specific templates that fit you.
Okay.
You know, there's just certain information that we really would like to see. But what I think is really interesting, Jeff, something for us to note, this issue of, you know, samples being registered and then images going somewhere else. That is something that the portal should take into account. And we've talked about integration of CSI into the portal. You know, that sample registration goes actually along with any of the data submissions, if that's desired.
Yeah. One other thing that struck me, Max, when you were talking is it seemed like you were talking about the difficulty in sort of convincing people that it's time or okay to like sign off on their data and let it go. And that sort of echoes a little bit of the feedback that we got in our reverse site visit from the panel saying, we need to sort of figure out how we're going to avoid the situation collectively where we have this ginormous data dump at the end of the project and we have this deluge of stuff happening in the very last year.
Yep.
Because there's two big implications there. One, it's going to be hard to manage all of that stuff if it happens in a really short period of time at the end. And two, it sort of minimizes the opportunities for data synthesis and potential cross-pollination across the thematic clusters. So those are definitely themes that we heard in the feedback from the panel in our reverse site visit too, that we would be quite interested in having conversations with you all about how we can sort of communicate with people, promote sharing early, you know, convince people that they're really not going to get scooped if they put things out there, or you know, alert them that there are these opportunities for sharing things privately before, you know, the end. And that the more things we can actually get into the system, the better off we're going to be, you know, towards the end. So those are all
Yeah,
considerations.
because it sounds like all that is on that, like, I'm sure that like you did a lot of like communication with the researchers to get what is on HydroShare now uploaded, but so it sounds like it's sample data from 2021 that is still private, like a small subset of all of your data from several years ago that is not shared, it's private. And it sounds like you have quite an expansive amount of data beyond that.
Yeah, and I think that's accurate. And Jeff, you kind of alluded to this, but it was definitely kind of a wake-up call, I think, for us and for them, going through the exercise of getting ready for this NSF site visit. And Praveen, our PI, really wanted some data up in HydroShare. And when he looks around the room and says, "Who's ready to upload data?" there's crickets. So what was sort of, I looked over our data and said, "Hey, if we did this, this would be pretty harmless, right? And this and this." And I went to each group and said, "Can I please do this?" And they said, "Okay." But it was
everyone's like, "I love fair data, just not my data."
Yeah.
The fact that it was all private is kind of like, it reassured them, and that's great, but it's also, it's not that much different than having an own repository at that point if it's all private. So yes.
Yeah.
And it's not going to appease NSF.
Yeah, exactly. So I think having that conversation would definitely be worthwhile, because I'm interested in ideas along those lines as well, and how to, particularly for like our time series data that's coming off of sensors. Like, there's never a point where it's like, we're done collecting. It's 365 days a year, it's collecting data. So figuring out when to partition and cut these things off and bundle them up is some of the conversations that we started having.
And that's what happened with several of these that you see on the screen. Is they identify older intervals that were potentially, like in the case, for example, the Flux Tower, there's already a manuscript that was published, and so for those, they were more than happy to say, "Okay, go ahead and publish them." And I think we will be able to make them public. We just didn't do it because some of those, they're still kind of deciding when they want to make it public. But so just to say that we are making some progress. It's slow, but we are making some progress. And I think, Max, right, some of this will be able, crossing fingers, to make public now that they're there, and they can look at them and be like, okay, yes, I'm comfortable with that. But yeah, besides the soil core samples, all of the rest are primarily time series data from a variety of different sensors, as you can see. And it's not all the data that we have, so we'll have to look at everything else, so we can start moving it, at least making it private, in HydroShare, because that's already a step in the right direction that makes them a little bit more comfortable saying, okay, now, can we make it public, because, you can
Yeah,
see.
you might offer them the option of making it discoverable, if that they're more comfortable with that, and just kind of across the board saying like, oh, well, they'll be able to access the metadata to the data, but no one will be able to download it without contacting you first. And that's kind of the it allows them to say like, people will be able to get to the resource landing page and see all the metadata for the data, but not actually download the content or see it. So you might offer that to them as an intermediary step.
Yeah, that seems like a good middle ground.
That sounds great. Yeah. Yeah, because we told them, right, if somebody else in the network wants to have access to your data, right, you can add them manually to the data set in HydroShare. But like you're saying, we want others to know that there is this data. And so at least
that they can request access. Yeah. All right, awesome. Well, thank you for all of your efforts on that. It's a large group to work with. So
I think overall it's going well.
all right, Derek, do you mind going next?
Sure. Sorry, I was a little late. Can I kind of get the gist of what we're doing, but could you, what was the specific question? What are you guys looking to know?
Yeah, sure. So the kind of goal is to understand, going into the new year, where are you currently with your data management, data collection? What are your plans for the new year? And what are some potential hurdles or roadblocks that you see in the path of your data management, data sharing, and data collection?
Sure. Well, I think we pretty much echo what Max and Luigi were just sharing, but I think we're about 6 months behind where they're at. As our group really is just getting their data out of the lab. So for our site visit, it was a mad scramble just to make plots and analyze and see what we have. So we're being somewhat proactive in our data management along with those steps, but it's also not kind of even, spreadsheets aren't finalized, things are moving around, data's getting replaced. So the only data that we have that's at all in, I wouldn't even say a final form, but a usable form that we feel okay about sharing with people is some of our sensor data. And just kind of with the hands off, like we've looked at this to make sure it's not crazy, but beyond that, we've done nothing to it. So we put some of that up on HydroShare, but similar to Max's group where it's all private. I mean, that's a pretty big stonewall with our PI group of putting out data before they're at least closer to a publication. So I think I don't foresee that I'm going to break through much of that to say it's public before publication. But our work around what we presented to NSF is that for our own internal interests, and I think down the road it could be useful for others, we put together our own database where we're aligning everything. We're bringing in all these data sets and then we're aligning them by the IGSN numbers for all our soil samples, and then we're also collecting all of the sensor data. So we have a web app that shows all of the data put together and allows you to kind of plot and work through it. And that's something we told at NSF that we would open up to the wider CZNet group as kind of an invite. If you're interested in seeing what data you have, you can come and we'll give you a password to get into this web portal, and then you can really see all of the data products that we have in their current state. And that's something that everybody's pretty in the group, all the PIs are pretty comfortable with, is kind of allowing access to the critical zone network group, people that are interested, people we can kind of meet at the door, so to speak, and say, hey, understand what this is. And if you're interested in it, great. But we also think that's a little bit of a shortcut to allowing everybody to see everything we have together in one place, rather than here's one private data set. And oh yeah, there's 4 more that we'll get to eventually. So we're hoping to finish the last few pieces of that web app and get a little bit more data in there. The goal is April. Realistically, it might be June, but I think by summer we'll be able to share all of our data with, you know, a select group, whether that's CZNet or others through that app. Not to say we're not still pushing everything to HydroShare and EarthChem, but I think it's going to be quicker, more inclusive through the app for now.
Okay.
Down the road, I mean, most of our data lends itself pretty well to HydroShare and EarthChem. I don't see a lot of problems. I mean, we're producing fairly standard soil data and really standard sensor data that those archives are built for. So that the templates we've filled out for our data, what we've uploaded so far, not a problem. I think it's pretty smooth. Our one data challenge is microbial sequence data. And part of that challenge is not only the limited resources, but really lack of knowledge. We don't, you know, I'm a soil scientist, not a microbiologist. We have one microbiologist PI. She's, you know, very willing to help and be engaged in talks, but she doesn't have a lot of expertise on what to do with that data. You know, MGRAST was the standard, and now it's got, you know, its own kind of known issues and things with people carrying it forward. So we're in this big gray area as to what we do with our sequence data. So
Would
that's,
it help if sort of this data management team or the CI hub team tries to find somebody who can help from that specific sequencing biology community?
yeah, it certainly would. You know, I'm not in the field, but I get the sense that it's a field-wide issue right now, that there's a need for a standard repository where this stuff goes. And with MGRAST, they thought that was going to be MGRAST, and it didn't get picked up. It sounds like it didn't get picked up by a group that could really maintain it and move it forward. So it's in this limbo state, and that's making people nervous. And it's just, you know, so it's a bigger problem beyond just our own group. So if there's leaders out there, if there's somebody working in a direction, we'd love to chat with them. But we're also we don't have the expertise in-house to lead that charge. We're kind of sitting, waiting, watching, saying, you know, what's going to emerge potentially by the end of our project in the next couple of years. The struggle is that I don't see great opportunity for us to share sequence data with, you know, a community for a while. And in part, we're not producing very much at the moment either. So that's down the road, but that's definitely the thing on our roadmap moving forward that is a big question mark. Not too concerned about anything else at this point.
No, I've got some connections, I think, that we can bring.
Yeah,
in.
that'd be great.
So
Yeah, sorry, Claire, another piece of feedback that we got in our reverse site visit panel report was that we ought to really be looking at bringing in other experts from other networks of data and science. And so this is an obvious place where maybe we could be reaching out and finding some additional expertise to help us out.
Okay.
So I'm actually just going to show everyone really quick what a discoverable resource looks like, just so you can like communicate to anyone that has questions in your group what it looks like. Claire, I hope you don't mind that this is one of your resources. It's completely like, I just found it on the Discover page. So here's the resource. You can see the metadata, but when you get down to the content, you can see you do not have permission to see these content files. Contact the owner if you wish to obtain access. So this is what it looks like when something is discoverable. As you can see, the metadata is viewable. And then it says, you know, this is kind of the at the door. This is where you can meet people at the door on HydroShare if you want to. But yeah, that's just for context.
EarthChem has the same.
Yeah.
I mean, any person who submits to the EarthChem library can set the release date. Until that release date, the resource metadata can be seen, but there is no downloadable file available, or files, whatever.
And just a note about data discovery, those those discoverable resources will also be cataloged in the CZNet catalog for discovery. But if they're totally private, they will not be cataloged for discovery. No one will know they're there but you if they're totally private. But if they're discoverable in that way, they will get added to the catalog.
I have one question. It's sort of a bit of learning from at this point. As Derek said, you have created, your own database to kind of share internally within the cluster information. Would it have helped if the Hub CI had set up a central system where the individual clusters can just create, some sort of catalog, some space where data can be shared entirely restricted to that cluster?
In regards to our project, I mean, we're putting all of our data kind of, the group has a Google Drive where we store everything.
Okay, yeah.
So that's fine. The issue with our project is that we sampled from 5 different sites at multiple kind of sub-sites and then multiple profiles. So we have all of these soil samples coming from a variety of sites. And then we ship them off to 4 different labs to do part of that analysis on those same samples. So we made splits and they all go out. So the data kind of starts in the field, goes out to all these labs, and then we need to recombine it all back together in a really seamless way that we can actually do the analysis. And the big concern up front was we don't want everybody reinventing the wheel to do that on their own. We need to do that stitching up front where everybody's looking at the same thing. So we really, our goal with our synthesized database is really to just make sure everybody's getting the same end product. And in this case, that's just one giant flat table that has pretty much everything. We have a few cases where we have certain data sets that have multiple values per soil sample, so it doesn't lend itself well to being in that single flat file, but we can manage that. So that's really what we're accomplishing with that database is allowing a team of 20 people to log in and get the exact same thing in real time and not have a whole bunch of people on the back end creating their own products and combining and all the script. You can imagine kind of the struggle and where people might get different things out of that. So that's our big purpose. And really we're just tacking on to that at the end of, hey, we could also share this with people. It's just kind of a win-win.
All right, thank you. And so now we have John and Rachel still to go. Do either of you have a preference on going first or second?
I can go.
All right, thank you.
We have 31 data sets uploaded to HydroShare right now. The breakdown is that 2 are public. No, 5 are public, sorry. 7 are private. A couple of those are just brand new, and then 22 are discoverable. So that's where we're at with that. We're constantly in a cycle of collecting, analyzing, and updating for different data sets. So that's just been ongoing. I mean, that's, we collect the data from the field, the different PI, it gets distributed to the different PIs. It's a quite lengthy process. They analyze it, they get it back to me. I update our internal database, then I put it on HydroShare for people to access, and then we update the resources that are on HydroShare with the added data. So that's kind of where we're at. We're moving into geomorphology data. One of our PIs is working on that. I don't know much detail about that yet.
It's a geophysics data.
Geophysics
data.
So that'll be coming up soon, but it's pretty much it.
So John and I both were tied up when you had your geophysics session last semester. And we were sorry to miss that. I mean, that's one key one that I really want to, so Meng Hong Huang at College Park is collecting seismic data right now, and he's going to be collecting electrical resistivity in the future. And we had talked with the Bedrock group long ago about how we should share ideas, and we don't have any ideas on how we should do this. And so I know that you ran a session, and unfortunately we just weren't available. So that's something that we do need to address. That's going to be very different than our water quality data, et cetera. So we need to get that, addressed in the future. Yeah.
Did we record that session, Jeff? I think we might have you're muted, Yvonne's presentation.
Yeah.
Well, if you recorded it, then I
probably
can
heard
find it.
Yeah.
I'll ask Maddie if we recorded it, and if we did, we'll send it to you to watch.
Okay, that's great. That would be a start, because
Thanks.
we have the data and it's sitting there not doing anything. And so I'm not an expert in that area, but I could work with Bunk Wong to, elicit it from him and get it going. Yeah. And they keep reinterpreting it. They didn't want it final, but that's okay. I mean, I could at least get the framework set up, et cetera. So, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. And Rachel, I think you're last. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready. So I think the last time that I gave an update, we had to pull everything from one of the 6 field sites. As of now, all the planned instrumentation has been installed, and that's something like 200 sensors, and they keep putting more out every day. So a lot of time series records. And I think almost everything on HydroShare is discoverable versus private. And this, similar to others, it's not going to be public until it's closer to a publication, or at least part of it is. So some of the physical samples collected do have IGSNs, and a lot of the rest has been put into templates and just needs to be submitted. So people are still working on that. Also, we're working on a data visualization web app, because the field work gets split by field like hydrology, ecology, things like that. I think that'll help with internal sharing to compare things. Everyone has access or can get access from a shared Google Drive to the data, but just for looking at something quickly. And eventually I'd like to make that available publicly and have it on our website or something, then link what you're looking at to a URL for the data set, but no real timeline for getting that done.
Yeah, what are you using to build that?
Just Shiny apps in R. That's about it.
Can I jump in and ask a question in that vein? Is it possible on the CZNet site for our groups to do like an iframe that would show a database from another link? Like, is that a way that we could bring our databases from our own links over to, the actual kind of proper website without having to do it specifically on that site?
That is a good question. So, Clara, I don't actually know all of the details of the CZNet website, because Kawazi, I believe, paid a contractor to build that website. I'm pretty sure it's built in a content management system, and I would be surprised if there's not an iframe capability in there, but I don't know the technical details. And Clara, I don't know if you know the technical details or not, but that's certainly something we could follow up on.
Yeah, Maddie manages changes to the CZNet website. So it would be a Maddie question, and then I would end up getting back to you about it. So do you mind describing like what it would be?
Yeah, so what an iframe is it's a piece of HTML code that essentially just grabs what's shown at a different web link and puts it in a box on a different page. And some sites, sometimes web content management systems are 50-50. Sometimes there are sites that prevent that. They say, iframes broken, don't work. If that's not the case, which is simple as just putting in a line of code, if that's not the case, it's a really great way that we can bring whatever we're building or wherever it's hosted on a server over to our CZNet page. So it'd be by far the easiest way to get the database kind of in the right place, rather than trying to actually host it through, somebody else. So in terms of testing, I mean, that might just be, anybody who can actually make a change on that website, who can go into the content management system. If I could set up a Zoom call with them for 15 minutes, we'll just test it. I'll give them the HTML line and we can see if it works.
Okay, yeah, that'll be a Maddie conversation. I'll talk to her after this and see if she like thinks it will be possible, and if so, I can like facilitate y'all getting in touch for a brief meeting to see if it'll work out.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That does bring up a larger, not a larger, like not an issue, but a larger topic, which is that in the CZNet website, each one of the clusters has their own section of the CZNet website. And within your clusters section, there's a data page. So you have options for featuring data sets, putting links to things on that page. And we, as the hub, would be happy to work with you to make sure that those data pages reflect what you want to be on those pages. Derek, I'm not 100% sure about this iframe question because it involves a level of technical integration that's dependent on the content management system that's running those pages. But certainly you all have options for putting content on those pages. Any static content would be fine. Dynamic content through iframes, we're going to have to sort out whether that's actually a possibility or not.
Yeah, I was going to say the CZNet web page right now is not really set up for us to put in our own HTML per se, or iframe for that matter. I had to work with them when it first went up, and it was a bit of a hassle to get our Twitter feed to show up on our page, for example. So it was not something I could do myself manually.
Yeah, not something we have to push, just kind of a question. But I mean, we could likely, accomplish just as much by going to the data page, putting some nice short descriptions of the data sets in, and then, a link that goes over to our database app from there. Because they're going to need to access, it's not something we're going to open public yet. So they're going to have to go through some steps to get there anyways. So I think that works just as well. Just thinking about what would be cool.
Yeah, sure.
Well, that's everyone who's on the call right now. Is there anyone that I missed in that hasn't had a chance to speak yet?
No, I think we've got everybody.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you everybody for taking the time to share the current and future state of your data. I think that this sets us up really well to be able to assist you as best we can with your data management in the new year, even though it's kind of already the middle of February. But yeah, and I know you guys had kind of quite a lift for your reverse site visits. So thanks for coming to do this as well. I think it was really helpful for us. Are
Clara,
there any other,
since we've got a few minutes, and sorry if everybody wants to go, but I do actually, I'm interested in maybe just a little bit of discussion. It seems like we have a couple of camps that are setting up with our clusters. We've got a set of clusters where maybe the cluster is just pumping their data out as fast as they get it. They're getting it, they're updating it, they're putting it into HydroShare. Many of those may still be private resources, but they're discoverable so that the NSF can see them, other people can see them, they can be discovered. And then it seems like we have another camp where people are like, no way are we releasing anything until we've got our publications done. And I wonder if there's some discussion here about like the difference in attitudes and the way different groups have arrived at being in one of those camps or the other camps, because this gets back to feedback that we're getting from our NSF reverse site visit. Like, how do we get people to get stuff out there before the very end of the project? Because I'm just guessing, and I'm going to throw this out there, that people are going to be publishing papers on CZNet data long after the end of these projects. And so if the cutoff point for sharing data is, I've now published my paper, I can share my data, well, that's going to be potentially years down the road. And so I'm curious. So it seems like Eric and Claire, you're kind of in one camp, and maybe there's another camp. So Claire's got her hand up. We'll let Claire take a crack at this.
So until you guys hit me over the head with an explanation of what Discoverable was, I think it was thanks to Clara last year, I didn't get that. And it was because I guess one of the other groups had done discoverable. I didn't realize that was an option. And so like, I love that option because that way people can see what we have, but we don't have to fully, we don't have to show the data. We can show the abstract. So I was totally unaware of that in the beginning. That was my bad. I guess I wasn't reading carefully enough. And I really love that option. So it may be that if there are other folks who aren't aware of that option and they see it and like it, that may be some other people coming over to this camp. You know what I mean?
There's
So-
that too, but I think that we started off from the foundation that data management is centralized. That if you are a part of this, you are agreeing to this central approach of data management. That doesn't mean we're going to tell you what to do in terms of how you analyze your data, but there's certain standards that you have to adhere to. And as a lead PI, Claire has always been really strong in that regard. And so because we started from that point, I think it helps us when people sort of stray and say, no, look, this is what you agreed to in the beginning. This is how it's going to be. And that's it. And so Claire kind of lays down the law. I think that from a cultural standpoint was really important to do at the outset.
To build on that from the opposite perspective. So one, I totally agree. I wrote down private to discoverable. I think we're just doing that wrong. I don't see it that we have any problem putting things in discoverable. So we'll switch the couple of items we have and then we'll update going forward. So that's great tip. But in terms of the part I just picked out is we don't have a PI pushing data. Our data management's coming from me, not from the PIs. And that's a big issue. I mean, not to pick on them, but that's, we have a bunch of kind of more traditional scientists who say, I'm going to hang on to this you're going to have to pull it from my, my fingers at the very end. I can see it coming years down the road. They will do everything they can to probably not make their data private because they're always going to think I've got another paper that I can get out of that. So, I mean, we're using the 2-year embargo periods to hopefully at least force a conversation when that comes up. It's been 2 years. You want to hold on to this data, you better give NSF a good reason why, not just our group. Like that's what we're going to use, but that's kind of the best opportunity I have at this point. Without a lead PI in the group, pushing other PIs to make their data available, we're fighting a losing battle.
Any other thoughts about this? I mean, I have another follow-up question, but does anybody else have any thoughts? One of the things that I mentioned earlier is that, our reverse site visit panel said the hub's got to figure out how to, and we had some discussion about this on our call yesterday. The comment was the hub has got to figure out how to incentivize people to get their data out there. And it's a bit of a sort of a funny comment from the panel, and it's kind of a chicken and an egg kind of a thing. And it's hard to do, but I'm wondering, this is a question that we're going to be asking in multiple places with the PIs, with the data managers, probably going back to NSF and saying, well, how do we actually incentivize people to do this? And I'm wondering if you all have, from the perspective of the data managers and your day-to-day work and your interactions with the PIs on your projects and the various people that are generating data, do you have any ideas about what would motivate them to buy into this sort of more centralized view of, well, we're participating in a network, we got to get our data out there? Or a lot of the products that actually we're working on may never make it into a publication, but they're still CZNet products and we need to get them out there. What are the incentives? What would convince people to participate maybe more than they have been? Go ahead, Claire.
Well, I think HydroShare is totally cool. Okay. And so one thing that motivated me was just, last spring I said, I'm going to sit down and go friggin' learn this thing. I'm doing work with John, learning it and how easy it was. To me, it's like, it's fun, you know? And the fact the interface is beautiful, and the fact you can have is discoverable with your little, you know, abstract and title and map. And, you know, I think it makes the project look good. And so I was like, you know, it's good PR. It's good PR for the project if someone goes in and finds these data sets, like, oh, wow, they've been doing a lot. And so I'm thinking, you know, I'm thinking in terms of NSF, making sure we're doing but just anybody saying, well, how active is this group? I think it's just good advertising for your project. And so these are all kind of light things, but to me, it was just such a, you know, I used HIS for years, and I had a backlog of data. I never uploaded HIS because I found it to be, I wouldn't say burdensome. And I liked how strict it was, but this is just more, it's just more fun, more interactive. And so maybe that could be incentive to people if they see how much fun this is, and just, well, you know, my idea of fun may not be the same as other people's idea of fun. But I just love posting new data sets, and I still have a bunch I haven't posted that are backlogged from other projects that are totally related to this one. And I'm going to put on, I just haven't had time. I tend to do this stuff when I'm on vacation in the summer, because that's when I have a lot of free time. And so I just think, to me, it's just sort of a marketing thing and a cool tool, but you know, different things float different people's boats, right?
I think
For
that's
sure.
a compelling outlook. I think that's a compelling way to like fill it.
You know, I'll counter that with, this is why Claire and I make a good team. I'll counter that with, I don't think that for many scientists, they only care about data insofar as it's something for them to use as a tool. It's not an interest of theirs, right? This has been my entire career has been dealing with this problem. So I tend to think that, you know, the stick works better in that regard, that if you're up front and you have rules, and that's, you know, you're getting money to do this, and this is a requirement, and it's contingent upon this, that's how you have to do it. But I think blending the two together is probably why we've had better luck so far.
It's true. NSF didn't say, it'd be really nice if you shared your data. They said, share your data. So.
I also think it's something important for especially the students to learn, you know, to publish your data and get it out there.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of my master's degree, my advisor was like, all right, if you're about to publish your paper, you got to go make your data public so that anyone can get it. So, and that was the first time anyone had talked to me about it.
Right.
We initially did some webinars and things sort of at the beginning of our data help sessions, where we were talking about using HydroShare, using EarthCam, sharing data. Like, do you think that there are enough new people and new students that it's time to revisit those again, and maybe have some more specific training and webinars targeted at students and postdocs who may not have been around the first time around, but may now be here and now actually have data that they're working with that, you know, fit and are ready to go?
I don't know if I could corral the various factions together in a cohesive group.
Well, this is something that we can do at like the all hands meeting, or, you know, some of these more in-person kinds of venues, because we've got a meeting coming up at the University of Utah, right? This summer.
Yeah, there should be a component of data to that, as opposed to us just going off in a separate room. You know, I thought that was great to do that, but also we should probably put it in front of people's faces and maybe have, you know, Jeff have the carrot and Clara have the stick. I don't know, something, but some combination of that, right? And like present it in such a way that like, hey, you have to do this, but also it's cool to do too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that I think that the PI or the data manager huddle at the last all hands meeting was really valuable. But it would also be valuable for us to do something similar where it's the data managers and the PIs being exposed to that conversation in which data is the priority. Maybe we can stick in carrot at the all hands meeting, Jeff. Well, maybe we just need
bad cop.
I thought it was interesting how I was the
Clara.
bad cop and you were the good cop. But I think
I'm the
that
bad
like,
cop, so I'm the bad cop, so don't take that personally. Yeah.
no worries, I don't mind being back up. But I think that like, if we kind of, before all of the participants, like Claire said, like some people just don't know that like there are various levels of access. And you kind of have some granular control. So maybe just in front of all of them saying, here's what you can do. And while we have a captive audience.
Yeah. Okay. Well, today's discussion is not the end of this discussion. I think we'll probably be mulling these ideas over. We're thinking about the feedback we got from our reverse site visit panel. We'll be probably preparing some sort of response to NSF, as you are all probably thinking about preparing responses to NSF from your site visits. And hopefully, everybody, I think everybody's done with their site visits now. Is there anybody that's still waiting to do their reverse site visit? I think they were all done in January. So
No, I think we scheduled this for after the last site visit because we didn't want
Yeah.
anyone to feel like they were going to have to come to this and be working for their site visit.
okay, well, thank you all for participating today. I mean, it's really great to hear these updates and hear more about what you're doing and what you're struggling with and the successes that you're having. And we'll definitely be in touch about the next session. If any of you have issues or data sets that you're, not sure what to do with or what, all that kind of stuff, we're still happy to have sessions with you and, meet one-on-one if we need to, but we can also address some of those in more, in the group setting as well. So please reach out if you need that, and we'll be in touch about the next session.